Within the high-altitude Zabarwan Range of the western Himalayas, Dachigam National Park serves as a protected sanctuary for a highly specialized ecosystem. Its origins date back to 1910, when it was established as a private hunting reserve and a critical watershed to ensure a clean water supply for the city of Shikargah. To create this 141 square kilometer wilderness, 10 local settlements were relocated. The park's name itself, Dachigam, commemorates those 10 villages. This rugged landscape is the final stronghold for the Hangul, or Kashmir Stag, a deer found nowhere else on Earth. For over a century, the Hangul has lived within one of the most strictly regulated ecological reserves in the region. Yet, despite these legal protections, the population continues to struggle, with recent numbers remaining far below historical levels. For decades, the Hangul was categorized as a subspecies of the common European red deer. Because it was seen as just one small part of a widespread species, its conservation was not always a global priority. In 2017, mitochondrial DNA sequencing provided a new perspective on their lineage. The data revealed that the Hangul is actually part of a distinct Central Asian clade, having been isolated in these mountain refugia since the early Pleistocene. This discovery highlighted the animal's true rarity, just as its numbers were reaching a critical low. A population that once numbered in the thousands had collapsed to roughly 150 individuals by 1970. At these low numbers, a species can become trapped in an extinction vortex. This is a cycle where a small population size leads to genetic inbreeding, which in turn results in lower birth rates and a reduced ability to survive environmental stress. As biological fitness declines, the remaining animals become more vulnerable to disease and harsh winters. Each subsequent loss makes the population smaller, which further accelerates the rate of inbreeding. A 19-year viability analysis of the Hangul confirms that the current demographic structure is unlikely to recover through natural processes alone. The modeling indicates that reversing this contraction requires intervening at the specific points where the cycle is failing. The first major leak in the Hangul survival loop is exceptionally high calf mortality. In many years, the number of fawns reaching adulthood is too low to sustain the herd. Researchers tracking hormone levels in the deer found a sharp secondary spike in stress markers during April and May. This period coincides exactly with the spring fawning season. This stress is largely driven by the arrival of migratory livestock and feral dogs in the fawning grounds. The dogs act as efficient predators, while the constant presence of humans and herds forces the deer away from the most nutritious forage during the peak of lactation. To address this, wildlife authorities established the Shikargah Trawl Breeding Center, the first facility of its kind in Asia for this species. The center features a secure, custom-fenced habitat where hinds can give birth. By protecting the fawns from predators and minimizing human disturbance, the facility aims to raise the recruitment rate for future reintroduction. This semi-captive approach allows the population to grow without the immediate pressure of the predation and physiological stress that occur in the wild. Survival also depends on the health of the adult herd, which faces a critical bottleneck every winter when food becomes scarce. Historically, this struggle was made worse by a 66-hectare government sheep farm located inside the park. The farm occupied the lower elevations that the Hangul rely on for thermal cover and food when snow blankets the peaks. Thousands of sheep consumed the vast majority of the winter forage and introduced the risk of livestock diseases to the already vulnerable deer. In 2017, the sheep farm was finally removed from the park. Since then, the area has been rehabilitated with native plant species, providing the Hangul with the winter nutrition necessary to maintain herd fitness. By restoring this habitat and removing the competition for resources, the management has addressed another key driver of the population's decline. While improving birth rates and winter survival is essential, long-term success requires addressing the genetic isolation that keeps the Hangul trapped in the extinction vortex. Over the last several decades, rapid urbanization and industrial development around the park have effectively turned Dachigam into an ecological island. These changes have blocked the paths the deer once took to reach other mountain ranges. Satellite telemetry shows that the Hanguls still attempt to follow their ancient migration routes. However, they are repeatedly blocked by infrastructure and human activity, preventing them from connecting with neighboring wildlife sanctuaries. Conservationists are now using habitat modeling to identify specific corridors, like a southern area known as Patch PID6, that could link Dachigam to the much larger Overa Aru Wildlife Sanctuary. Restoring this landscape connectivity is the key to allowing the genetic exchange needed to overcome inbreeding. There are signs of progress. The 2025 census recorded 323 individuals, showing a steady numerical stabilization following the recent management interventions. The survival of the Kashmir stag depends on this transition from isolated management to landscape-level restoration. By reconnecting these ancient routes, the Hangul may finally move beyond the borders of Dachigam and out of the Extinction Vortex.